Hey everyone, I'm Taluka from Markers and Minions. This short video is part of my series of Sunday videos where I share some of my tips based on my experience using Benchmark Advance in my classroom. Before I jump into today's topic, I want to let you know that I'm excited to be launching my annual online course dedicated to teaching all of my tips and tricks for using Benchmark Advance in your classroom. And it's from a teacher lens. It's designed from my own experiences using the program for several years with my second and third graders. So I'll teach you effective and efficient planning strategies and how to make your units more accessible and engaging for your students, and how to scaffold the complex text. We'll go over all of the issues that we have as teachers with the program and come up with potential solutions for them. So if you'd like to be notified for when this course officially opens up for enrollment, you can join my waitlist using the link in the caption. The course is only going to be open for enrollment for 1 week. I like to keep it a short window just to get everyone in at the same time, so then we can move forward together as a cohort. So that's why it's really important that if you're even considering it, to join that waitlist so that you'll be notified, you'll be emailed when course enrollment actually opens up. Okay, so for today's video, I want to talk about the two most popular ways to structure your centers in your small group time. Now, Benchmark Advance comes with like workstation and small group setups, right? But really you can use this approach with any of your subjects if you're using math, small groups in science, whatever. But obviously this is how we can kind of tackle that workstation time with Benchmark as well. So before we talk about those two different ways to structure your students and the organization, let's talk about what the goals are for this workstation time. Number one goal is to give students time to practice independently what you've been teaching them. So you have them theoretically on the carpet or whatever in their seats, and you're teaching that whole group mini lesson, and it's mini and a lot of it's modeling and you have a little bit of guided, and then in order to make the lesson not become a maxi lesson, you have to save some of that work, part of that lesson, for independent centers, right? So that first goal of centers is to give students actual time to practice what they just learned about in your whole group lesson. The second goal is to keep your students engaged in meaningful work while you get that valuable one-on-one time with your guided reading group. So this is where you're pulling out those leveled readers with your group of kids. They're maybe all on the same reading level, or maybe you're doing strategy groups where you're working on a specific reading skill. But nonetheless, you need that time uninterrupted with those kids. So meanwhile, you need your other students to be in their small groups, in their centers, working on something that's meaningful and that's going to keep their attention. So I'll show you as an example what my students had in their small groups folders. I used to have little folders that I would clip onto clipboards. They would take that everywhere. They'd take it down to the carpet for their whole group lessons, and then they would travel the room during centers. And in their folders, they had their writing booklets. So these are just little booklets that we'd start in whole group writing lessons, and then they'd continue working on them during their writing workstation. They had their word work pamphlets, so this is where they practice their spelling and their grammar and a little bit of the vocabulary for the week. And then they had their text-dependent questions bookmarks, or I used the bookmarks. Some teachers prefer the full pages, but these were for the reading workstation where they would answer comprehension questions using the weekly text. And then you might also throw in like a graphic organizer or a close reading companion, something else that's another task for them to apply some sort of reading strategy or skill using the weekly text. And the way that I organized it was they just had it all together so that they could pull it out on their own based on what center they were at. One important thing about this is it doesn't need to be collaborative, does not need to be a game, does not need to be something that's laminated with a board and dice and all that. It can totally just be independent work that students reference. Keeping materials flexible in this way will allow you to structure your centers in the way that works best for your kids. So the first way to structure them is to not actually have centers. What? One myth or misunderstanding is that you have to have your kids like moving around the room and going to these different sections of your classroom to visit their center, but that doesn't really work for every class or for every teacher because it can cause you to lose classroom minutes, it can cause your kids to get distracted in the process. If this sounds like your class, you can try to uncenter your centers or decenter and just not have them travel the room. So have students stay at their own desks and work independently. They can still have their specific materials for centers and their must-do, may-do list, but you can have them work independently instead of with partners or groups or pods. Now the second way to structure your centers is to actually have students move to the specific areas of the room, right? So I have these groups of kids that actually go to centers, and they're called teams. They're strategically created with a mix of kids. So I have the leaders, the helpers, the tutors, and the kids who actually need more help. So think about it. You can't level these independent groups homogeneously because then you're going to have a group of all, kids who might just breeze through work, and then you might have a group of kids that is really going to struggle and be off task and not get the most out of that time. So when you mix them up, you mix and match them with, like, for example, a tutor, someone who loves helping other kids, with someone who needs that help in that same group, then your groups are going to run much more smoothly, and it's going to give you that time with your guided reading group uninterrupted. All right, so in this approach, students have specific areas of the classroom that are spaced out enough for the teams to actually sit together and work together. So in my class, I had a team on rug. I had a team over in like the lounge area of my classroom. That's where word work was. I had the writing center at a round table, and I had a tech center at like this long table, low table to the ground. So, and you can also put kids out in the hallway if you feel like they can handle that. So remember your goals. Students get practice time, and then you get that time with your reading groups. So it doesn't matter how it looks in your classroom as long as those goals are being met. And remember, you can start the beginning of the year without centers where students are just at their desks and getting the swing of things and learning the norms and your expectations for that time. And then you can switch to allowing them to go to different centers. Or the opposite, you can have them start out by visiting different areas of the room, build that classroom community, get them to know your classroom, and then if it doesn't work, you can always have them use the other approach where they're just staying at their desks. You can be flexible with it as long as you remember those two goals of your small group time. So this is just one of the many things we'll cover in my online course, Fitting It All In Using Benchmark Advance. So I run the course each year, and I have this simultaneous class community or cohort that collaborates online. And this year, my course is only opening up one time. Last year, I opened up two cohorts. This year, it's just one. It's going to be in July. So, and I get this question a lot. What if I sign up for the cohort and then I end up, summer break, I end up not wanting to start the class right away, or I end up not being able to for whatever reason? Don't worry, you're always going to have access to the course for life. So even if our little live cohort comes to an end, you'll still be able to access the course, re-access, re-watch based on your schedule, your time, your needs. All right, so see that link in the caption of this video. If you sign up for that, it's the wait list. I'll email you several times, plenty of times, so that you know when that short enrollment window is open, and you'll be able to join us this year. So that's it for today. Next Sunday, I'll talk about 2 simple ways to make your benchmark units more fun and engaging. So mark your calendars, and I'll see you next Sunday evening.